Go. Hi.
Oh, I almost said good
Welcome
morning.
back.
It's
No,
not,
we're in.
it's not morning.
It's the afternoon, but
Yes.
thanks for joining us. Sorry we're late. We were just,
Roy was, yeah.
getting ready. Had to turn our phones off and do some other things, important things.
Last
But
minute.
anyways,
Last
last
minute.
minute things. So sorry we're late. But thanks for joining us. Today, I guess we're going to talk about dichro slide and the other kind of like enamel decals. So we had some people ask us some questions about, in particular, like how to use the dichro slide. And we thought, wow, what a great opportunity for us to show that. So, and then along that same route, we're going to talk about using the enamel decals. So if you've never used any of the water slide products, they're really quite easy to use, aren't they? Don't you think?
Oh, they're really easy to use.
Yeah, and the nice thing is that they you can use them on any COE glass. So
yeah, and we were talking. I'm sorry, but we were kind of looking at price points, especially against the dichroic on the glass variety that we sell versus the dichroic on this paper type stuff, and the price isn't that much different. But one of the things that I think is a real advantage is this is like a paper, so you can cut it into any shape you want.
Yeah.
So, and once again too, instead of, if you happen to be someone who works in both coefficient 90 and 96, buying dichro on glass needs to be in the 90, and obviously the same thing for the 96. So you have two sets of dichro, whereas with the slide you can just buy one and you can use it on any of your coefficients. So certainly has some nice properties to it for sure, and it makes a nice look. So we have some examples to.
yeah, I mean if you saw the little bowl here, that I think a great artist made this, if I'm not mistaken.
She is a great artist.
It was Kaylee behind the camera. You couldn't cut this, out of glass. Well, you could, but it'd be quite a challenge, right? You might have to use a saw or something, but you could just use the paper and just cut it with scissors. So, we have a samples of some of them that come out. So this is a dichro magic or dichro slide made by Glasshopper. If you're familiar with them, we were talking. There are probably some other products out there, other kinds of dichroic slide, water slide stuff, but we found this one to be the easiest to work with. So
yeah, I definitely think this is it. I think that it's really reliable. I mean, that's the really nice thing about it.
Yeah, fun thing is comes on with patterns too, right? So it's not always just single color.
And then what Kaylee's showing you can see that the top part, or one of the top parts, I cut V's. Which, for any of you who are glass people, you know that cutting a piece of dichroic on glass into a V shape would pretty much require a bandsaw. But with that, it was just real easy to do. So that's what I was
going to paper punch one real quick too, because you can see. I don't know how well you can see the hummingbird. It shows better on the camera, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. It was the water slide decal stuff, and I just paper punched it. So I was going to do one real quick, so just so you could see it. I know that we talked about, I think in one of our other presentations, we talked about etching dichroic, which you get a very similar look. But this is even almost easier, right? It's a whole lot easier.
It's quicker, for sure.
So I just got to slide the decal paper through into the paper punch, and then squeeze it, and the design just pops right out. Isn't that nice?
Look at that.
And so again, one of the things that we talked about last time was, what's nice is you actually get two things, right? So I got a positive image of the hummingbird, so I could put that on the glass, or I could use the negative part, right? So if you put that on there, now I've got a black hummingbird that's covered, with dichroic around the outside. I think on this one I'm going to just put that on there. So we're going to put it in some water, and I just sometimes I kind of poke it down a few times so that it'll. On the bigger ones, you'll find that they roll up. You'll see the little one rolls up too a little bit. But if you kind of just poke your fingers in there, it'll kind of settle down in the water. I think when Val and I were doing some reading, they recommended some distilled water. I can tell you we're not using any distilled water. I mean, maybe that's better or easier. We're just using whatever city water we have here. So
the drying thing too, I kind of altered that recommendation.
What'd they say?
As well.
You should let it dry before you fire it?
Yeah. I just dab it. I mean,
Yeah, with a paper towel. Oh, I should grab a paper towel.
When you think about, the fact it's in a kiln and you're heating at a certain rate, whether it's really fast or not, you would have to think that any of that Any of that little bit of water that might be left over after you've dabbed it is probably going to be dry by the time it reaches any temperature to affect anything.
Well, you
So
know my opinion. I mean, I put in
your
things
opinion,
wet in the kiln all the time.
Yes, and I agree with
whatever.
it. I agree with it in some situations.
So it does take a few minutes, for the. So this is a plastic film with a paper backing. So I know you can't probably see it all that well, but there's like a paper backing, and then there's a plastic film. So when the paper gets wet enough, then the film will slide off it. I think that's
It's a decal.
one reason why they call it
Just
like
a
water
decal.
slide decals, right?
Yeah.
So you'll know when it's done. I don't know if. If you leave them too long, they'll float off, and sometimes they're hard to manage at that point. But you'll see them start to separate from the paper backing, and that's usually when it's time to do it.
Or I just pick it up and then
You
just
can
with
slide
my
it
thumb,
sometimes,
I just kind of try to.
I do the same thing.
And then if you
Oh, yeah,
feel
look at
it
this.
sliding, you're good. You
Yeah,
know?
so this one you see it, so you can see it sliding off the paper, so it's good. I like to leave it on the paper. I just think it's easier if you're trying to take it to wherever you're trying to go with it, and then slide it onto the glass. Because this one's kind of the paper's wrinkling up, but.
Well, it's little, so it's
Yeah, yeah.
more difficult to do than what you're used to.
And just kind of slide it off. When it's wet like this, you still have a little opportunity to kind of move it around, which is nice. So you don't have to worry about getting it perfectly centered the first time you do it. You can move it however you want to do it. And as Val was mentioning, I just come in with a paper towel and then just pat any excess water out of there. Again, on the larger ones, sometimes you'll trap some bubbles or moisture underneath the decal. And then what I do there is just kind of pat it. You want to pat it more than rub it, and just kind of pat it to the edge, and then you'll just force any water out to the edge and then dry it. But that's usually about all I do. And
That's
then,
it, yeah.
like Val and I have said, I would put this in the kiln. Right now, there'd be no reason for me not to do that. I don't think, right?
Right. And I don't think they say overnight. I don't think they I think they just, like an hour or something, let it dry. But,
Oh, yeah.
But just because what we do with photo fusing too, the photo fusing stuff, that says to let it dry overnight, and we don't do that either, do we?
No, we don't. No, we don't. Wow,
we're
So
rebels.
then you have some samples here, right, of some earrings you were making.
They might be hot.
Yeah,
No, they're
we
good.
literally just fired these, right? They
Right.
were done like
Yeah.
5 minutes ago, I think. So.
So there's a packet that comes with all these little pieces,
Yeah.
and so I guess if you're going to do a big piece, maybe this isn't exactly the pack you'd want to get, because you are limited with just this little scrap piece. But to do jewelry, I mean, I thought, well, how cute would that be? So I just cut, a few little. Actually, you can't see them, but they're actually red. And then just cut the pattern out, floated it in the water, put it on there, and just threw it in the little kiln and ramped it up to a full fuse. So I think that can make cute. They make some really cute findings now that you can just glue on the back, and wow, I think this whole thing took an hour.
Yeah, I don't know,
mean,
what's
from
it-
cutting the
cutting
glass
to
to
firing
fusing
it,
it to So they could be
Nice.
quick
gifts, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, for Mother's Day, right? You still have time?
Yeah.
But
Oh, heck yes, you could do it that morning.
Yeah, that's probably what I'll do. That's what I normally do. So yeah, Val mentioned it was a full fuse, and I know that typically the dichro slide, I mean, that's how you would fire it. So whatever your normal full fuse is, for us it's 1450, but whatever you guys are using, that's what you want to do. I fired it under that temperature a little bit, but I think generally it's got to be like 1350 or hotter. I think you'll probably find you'll like the results better if you're above that temperature. I don't know about over firing them. I haven't really tried to fire them hotter than like that, so I don't know.
We don't.
Yeah, we don't
Rarely
usually
fire
fire
anything.
up around 1500. Usually I don't. So sometimes I don't know how well the coating holds up. To be honest, I know dichroic glass sometimes at 1500 isn't also great, but I assume this would be
And
similar.
you're going to talk about some of these other decals, right?
Yeah, we'll talk about the other decals.
And the one thing I think that's sort of an interesting thing to know is that you can't, like, sometimes we'll get the question, okay, I have these decals, what do I fire them at? Well,
Oh gosh, yeah.
I don't know. We don't know. You should have that should be in the package with the directions, because some of them are low fire and some of them can be high fire. And so what the directions should usually tell you is what that particular product you're buying is going to mature at, what temperature you can take it to mature, or it'll tell you not to go hotter than 350, or you know what I mean. So just the generic question of how do I fire decals isn't really a valid question. It has to. It depends greatly on what decals you're using. So that's one thing you always want to watch. So just because we're saying
Yes.
certain things,
Yep.
you know,
Good
it's
point.
still going to matter what ones you buy and what ones you use. So we'll talk a little bit about
Yeah, we'll talk about the other decals. Yeah, I know that the Dichro slide people, you know, it comes with a sheet, you know, that kind of gives you some directions, kind of the same similar stuff that we just showed here. And they pretty much just say the same thing, just fuse it to a full fuse, and they just leave it at that because, again, those temperatures should work for what we're doing. Fuse as usual is actually one of their last step. Whatever.
Nobody wants to commit to,
Yeah, like
to
what,
any
what's
temperature. Do they?
yeah,
They
what's
just wanna-
what's usual,
Goodness.
but anyways, you know, if you have questions about this, you know, or anything else we're doing today, I mean, feel free to reach out. You know, I mean, send us a comment in the video section below. You can always send us a message on Facebook or Instagram, or email us. Right, that's the last resort. Is Facebook@delphiglass.com.
You're getting better at
I'm
that.
getting
I mean,
better
you're kind
at
of
it, right?
looking around,
I know I'm looking
pretending
for
like
that.
you're
I'm
not
pretending like I'm
reading.
not reading it.
Although almost everybody can see your little eyes.
Can you see my eyes going sideways? No, you can't.
Yeah.
I try not to turn my head that way. But seriously, reach out to us, and we'd be happy to, if you really need more information about temperatures. I mean, Val and I are happy to offer up temperatures.
Oh, heck yes.
Yeah, whatever.
We commit, don't
Yeah,
we?
we commit. I mean, we know what works for us, and I mean, that's how I always present it to people. I say, hey, this is what I do. I think it works, but, you know, you should try it. And I mean, you should always try when someone gives you a firing schedule. I mean, try it out in your own kiln and see what it does for you. And if you like it, great. If you don't, then, you know, change it, right? There's nothing wrong with that. So I think that's pretty much it for the Dichro slide stuff. I mean, as you can see, it's pretty simple to work with. That's
It is
one of the
pretty
reasons
simple, but I
why
also
we
think,
like it.
You know,
but-
take note too that I think that it is quite visual. I mean, I think it gives you a really nice, strong image.
Yeah, I
with,
agree.
You know, with the flexibility of doing whatever shape you want. That's what I think
Yeah.
the biggest draw is.
You know, I noticed one thing though as we're looking around. So, and this is, I think, is just probably more personal preference. I know for me is that a lot of times when I use the Dichro slide, like we did in the earrings or in the bowl, it's on the top surface. So these are not capped with clear.
Oh, good point too. 'Cause,
Right?
Yep, we
yeah,
don't
we
do
didn't do
that.
that. Sorry. I just like that look. I mean, I know for me, like I
Me
was saying,
too.
I think it just looks a little more dramatic. You can see here, even on this little one that I did. Here was, it's not capped with clear. You can cap them with clear. I mean, it certainly doesn't affect it any. The Dichro slide people say try layering a few. You might, you know, get some kind of interesting effects. I just know for me, I think that a lot of times when it's on the surface, it's just more noticeable, right?
I think it is. I think
would you
it's
agree?
stronger. I think
Yeah,
it's a
that's a good
stronger
way of putting it.
statement. And I also think that when you cap things in clear, and you and I found this out when the photo fusing paper first came on the market.
Oh, yeah,
They
we
always
used to.
recommended that you cap it with clear, which I guess makes sense, but it creates such a glare that
Yes,
that was what we were really not liking at, and so ever since then I've kind of gone away with.
Yeah, or sometimes some distortion. That clear on
Yeah,
top sometimes
magnifies or does
can
something
trap an
weird.
air bubble or make the decal move a little bit. So wrinkle.
But it's certainly
I think,
not
is what
wrong.
I've
If
noticed.
that's
But yeah,
something you
no.
want to do, that's not wrong at all. But it works both ways, and I
Yes,
think that's the one
yeah.
thing a lot of people get under the impression that you have to cap it with clear, otherwise it burns off,
Yes, yep.
and it doesn't.
Or you think it or there's only one way of doing it, but there is obviously two. We just didn't show you an example.
We just don't
So
do
sorry
it, or
about
we
that.
didn't think about
yeah,
it.
I didn't think about it until just a second. So then we wanted to show you some enamels, only because I mean they're very similar, right? So they're similar to the to what we're doing with the Dichro slide is, so these are water slide decals. So it's the same deal, right? So you would cut these out, float them in water, they come off, and you would stick them on. And as Val mentioned, you know, we get this question asked a lot of times is like, well, what do I fire my decals? What temperature do I fire them at? And then we give kind of the generic answer, like, and I know it sounds like a cop-out, we say, well, you got to read the directions because there is not a set answer for that because there are different types of enamels that get fired at different temperatures. And then sometimes the manufacturer will use terms like low fire or high fire, which again can be a little ambiguous, right? I'm not really sure, you know, what's low to me, what's low to you, right? So that could be different.
Could be.
But we fired some here, so just to show you. So these really nice hearts. So this one comes, I'll open up the package just so you can see what it looks like. And it does come with this, most of these come with a wax paper on the surface. So you'll want to be a little careful because sometimes like this one's easy, but sometimes the wax paper is kind of stuck to it and you have to kind of peel it off. And I've had people before think that the wax paper is somehow part of the decal. And then, so when they're floating in the water, they'll try to fire that, and that won't fire at all, obviously.
That won't work.
So sometimes the wax paper is sticking, so you got to peel it off, and then you can really see the nice vibrant color. I'm not sure why the decal slide paper is pink here, but that does fire away. You won't see it. And so you can see some samples here, and what we showed was,
I don't know what's going on here.
Yeah, I think so. We showed temperature-wise what happens at different temperatures, and we started as low as these are 1150. So pretty low temperatures, and these two were both at the same temperature. I think one reason that we have the two samples, you can see sometimes at the lower temperature how unstable the enamel is, and I think it just came off in these spots here. You'll notice there's some little holes or divots in the enamel.
Okay, I didn't know why she did.
Yep, and then we didn't do these. So these were done by the store assistant manager here at Delphi, Daisy Simon, and we appreciate her a ton. She did a great job with these. And then so she fired them at different temperatures. So then there's 1200, 1250. I don't know if there was a 1300 or not. I think she was just jumping up. There's a 1350 and then a 1450. So you can see the higher temperatures really are not working. And part of this came from, we had a customer walk in the store, and hers were even more gray looking than this. And she wanted to know, well, what's going on with my decal? And then she did fire it at what we would call a full fuse. So a pretty hot temperature, right over 1450 probably.
So definitely the 1200 to 1250. 12 to 1250 is where I think the color is as bright as it gets.
Yeah, and I don't know how well this shows up on camera, but the 1250 one is nice and smooth too. You're not picking up any texture from the glass. Oh, maybe that's just how she did the glass. Maybe she had it flipped over. Oh, yep, that's it. Never mind. Forget what I said.
Okay. Okay. But I think anywhere. So, but the colors is what I'm saying. The low temperature is a little washed out looking to me, and then the higher temperatures are starting to do the same thing.
Yeah.
So it definitely has a sweet spot.
Yeah, so there's some other decals that are, like this one is it's just black, right? So that's pretty obvious. And I can tell you this is a pretty low firing temperature, and they recommend like 1290 at the hottest. And I can tell you that's probably the hottest. I fired these lower than that before, like in the 1150 range, so these you can get away with. If you see this one here, you can see how nice and kind of vibrant the black is. And then let me show you this one, because I see that this one's been slightly, I put it in the over-fired category. So maybe that shows up. You see how transparent it starts to get? It's actually bleeding a little bit. I don't know how well that shows. And so some of the lines aren't as crisp as we would expect from the enamel. And I'm pretty sure it's because this was fired on the glass at a full fuse, which is usually too hot for the black ones. And I think the white's probably very similar. So this is what the white one looks like. Again, they show you the color because otherwise you wouldn't, white on white, you wouldn't be able to see the decal very well. So they just color it pink, but it doesn't fire.
That burns off.
It burns off totally. And this is another low fire one that they're recommending, again, 1290, which I tell you my personal experience is I think that's probably the high end of these. I wouldn't go much over 1290 or 1300. What's nice is a lot of times this particular manufacturer gives you some little samples to just play around with, right? So, because every kiln is different. I mean, I know one of the things that if you've listened to Val and I, we try to remind people that temperature is only good and specific for your kiln. So maybe you're going to fire these at 1280 and not 1290, right? So, anyways, they give you some little samples so you can do some firing before you commit to the whole decal, right? The others, we have the gold ones, right? So these are the...
So I don't know if this is a good time to bring this up or not,
Sure.
but or even if we need to bring it up. But I do think some of the other things in talking to people that they get a little confused about is, so on these ones that we've said are low fire, let's call them low fire, meaning you really don't want to fire them above the 1280 or 1290, right? So that then should tell you that there's a specific time you can use them. So if you're going to fuse, two pieces of glass together to create, some plate or platter, then you can't put the decals on then. You've got to take that to a full fuse to get it to melt together and become whatever it is you want it to become. So then that would mean you'd have to go back in and either put them on maybe during the slumping, because that would certainly work during your slumping cycle, but they just, certain things aren't going to work. if you can't get them hot enough when you do your full fuse, so you have to do them in another consequent firing, right?
Yeah, I've run across some before that needed to be fired at like 1100, which is really low. So then in that situation, I had to fuse the piece first, then slump it, and then I left it in the mold and then put the decal on it and fired it just to 1100. So that ended up being 3 firings to get the decal on. So yeah, Val makes a good point, is that you have to figure out, well, where in, which firing schedule can I do this at, right?
Yeah,
in
just
order
to help
get
you
it.
so you can plan what you're doing,
Yeah.
and then not all of a sudden go, oh, whoops, I
You want
didn't.
to hand me some of those real
Yeah,
quick?
I do.
Hey, so we wanted to show you, so these other decals are the gold decals. Now these, I don't know how well this shows up on the phone there, but it is, they're shiny gold. These are like,
They're
they're
pretty.
24 karat gold, right? So these little discs where we were making something to decorate your patio, like you have these patio lights that kind of you string around your patio, and then so we were hanging these between the lights because we were thinking during the day, right, the lights aren't all that interesting, so we were making these kind of decorations to go outdoors and hang outside and just hang off the lights. But and then we were using the decals, so you can see how nice and shiny the gold is at, and these actually can be fired hotter, so which is nice. I've actually done these at a full fuse before. I know the directions say 1290 on the back, but I know the gold you can get away with certainly going hotter, yeah, than the black or white. So again, if you're working with black, white, or any color, then you want to take a real close attention to what they recommend as a temperature. Like I said, the gold you can get away with a little bit more. Yeah, these are some black ones we did. I don't know how well those show up.
So I think
on
that's
here.
another good point too. Sometimes, depending on what you put them on, can help them show up a little better.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, it helps to kind of pick
they're not
and
real
then
dark.
yeah, and these are these are the decals, right? So you can see that they're not really very big, right? I mean, the bees are pretty small, but what's nice is you got all this space to cut out whatever you need for your design. And then a lot of them are I like these. We have these military ones too, so that are a variety of different the different.
Air Force. I have Air Force.
Yeah, look at that. So those are kind of a nice way of personalizing some stuff, right? Putting some things. I mean, that to me is the nice thing about decals, because you could never, you're not going to cut little tiny stars this small. You're not going to be able to cut flowers that look like this in glass. So and painting them by hand is kind of a pain, but here you get this nice kind of look to them with the decals, and they're pretty easy to use, I think, right?
Real easy to use. Like I said, that they can be a nice little add-on to make something a little more personal.
Yes.
So I like them. No questions, huh?
Man, we must be doing
We're
okay.
good.
So
I mean, we just
holy
make
cow!
everything so
Wow, do we
clear
make it
and
so easy to understand? And
Yes,
so easy.
I mean,
That's us. That's what we're here for, people. So I guess we're coming back in a couple weeks, and we don't know exactly what we're going to do yet. But if you have ideas, again, reach out to us, right? Email us or message us on one of those social media things.
now he's going to be self-conscious.
Yeah, no, I didn't want to read it. But otherwise, thanks for joining us.
Yep. See you next time.
We'll see you next time.